Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the 8th episode of Bangladesh and Beyond podcast. We have a very special guest today, which is our brother Daniel Haqiqatjou. Brother, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
This is brother Daniel's first podcast in Bangladesh. Obviously, this is an Zoom-based podcast, but we hope he will visit us soon. Brother, do you have any plans to visit Bangladesh?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. I would love to visit. I don't have any concrete plans as of now, but I'd love to visit the great country, mashallah.
Brother, Dr. Yasir Kadi is now visiting Bangladesh. So you are also one of the American duat who is working on the scene. I think it would be good for you. You have lots of listeners and fans in Bangladesh. So it would be good, I think.
Yeah, it'd be great. I'd love to.
If you have any plans, please let us know.
Allah.
Let's get into the questions. Do you know about the recent regime change in Bangladesh?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. The regime changed had the spirit, or I'd say Islamic spirit, like people were going out in the street to protest and they were reciting the kalima. They had the spirit to be shahid, to be martyr. When we have the Islamic spirit, but still the political system is anti-Islamic. And throughout the generations, we had Islamic system in Bangladesh before the British colonizers invaded us. It was Mughal Sultanate. So from then on, we are being ruled by the anti-Islamic political system. What do you think Bengalis should do to get out of the clutches of anti-Islamic political systems?
Well, they should continue to do what they've been doing, which is rediscovering an Islamic identity and rediscovering that the pride and the izzah of being Muslim as a source of not only how to live your life, but also society, how society is structured. So the more that Muslims around the world, not only in Bangladesh, they tap into that mentality and that mindset of Islam as an entire way of life, then that is going to continue to push society towards adopting Islam, practicing Islam, and establishing an Islamic system. So it begins with the mindset. And this is, as Allah says in the Quran, that Allah does not change a condition of a people until they change with what is within themselves. So this is one of the main things that we see in Muslim societies, where the Muslims are not fully accepting Islam as a way of life. Then they continue to be oppressed by an anti-Islamic system. They continue to have tyrants rule over them, oppressing them, subjugating them. It's only if we internally change our mindset towards one that's directed towards Allah and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we can begin to move in the right direction towards Islamic society, Islamic system. Inshallah.
Brother, when we talked about interviewing Brother Daniel Haqiqatjou, one of our brother asked a question to ask you, which is that Bangladeshi people, some of the students or maybe majority, adopted secularism as their way of life. This has affected them a lot. What do you think they should do, or other duat should do, Bangladeshi intellectuals duat should do, to realize them that secularism is not better than Islamic system?
The best thing to do is to point to the degeneracy of the West and to see the downfall of the West that is happening as we speak. So this is the best evidence that you can point to, that the secular way of life, it destroys humanity at every level. It destroys humanity on the level of the individual, because people, if you look at the statistics of Western people, terms of their depression, their psychological problems, their suicidality, their just confusion about life. What is the purpose of life? What is the meaning of life? There is a major existential crisis, psychological crisis that has destroyed the West on an individual basis. Then, on the basis of marriage, marriages don't exist. People cannot get married. The statistics show that the majority of people under 30 years old will never get married in the West. Women and men, they are growing old alone. And you might think that, well, zina is, they're doing zina and they have girlfriend, boyfriend. This is false. They're not able to have a girlfriend. They're not able to have a boyfriend. It is quite dire from that aspect. Forget about having family, having children. The average age of having even one child is over 30 years old, 30, close to 35. They're having their first child, and it's children by themselves, raised by a daycare system or a public school system. So children don't even grow up knowing their family or their parents. So all these problems with family, and then society, drug usage, the prevalence of drugs. Drugs have destroyed entire cities in America. Small cities have been destroyed. Even bigger cities like Philadelphia have been really destroyed by a drug problem. Cities like San Francisco, homelessness and drugs. So it's very obvious, it's very pronounced, the amount of destruction and degeneracy that has taken over the West. So if you see that, and it's that reality is there, because now with social media, everything can be shared through video, then it's obvious that this Western secular system is not providing a kind of good solution for humanity. It's actually leading to destruction and chaos and degeneracy. This is the best kind of argument to make to Muslims around the world.
Well, Brother Daniel, you said that that thing like zina is getting so much normalized these days, and our parents doesn't even think that this is a haram thing. They think this is totally normal, as their children are having a girlfriend or boyfriend, and they're taking it so much normally, and they're not even forbidding them, right? So why is this downfall in Muslim societies, families, or countries? We can see this in every country, almost every Muslim countries, and maybe before 30 to 40 years, this was not like this. This insane amount of zina we didn't see that time, but we are seeing this right now. Why? What do you think? Why this has affected so much?
The big problem is the destruction of gender roles. So when you destroy gender roles and the idea of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, then you destroy modesty, you destroy haya. And when you destroy haya, then people don't have any shame to do whatever they want, to mix with the opposite sex. So then it begins with the mixing and casual relationship, and then casual relationship becomes full-blown relationship, which is zina. So these things happen step by step. And when the first step is taken, that's when you have to really stop it before it goes any further. But if you tolerate it and you say, oh, it's okay, like it's fine, we can just change the gender roles, for example, and women don't have to be modest, women don't have to be covered, women don't have to be separated from men, women don't have to be mothers or wives, they can go and pursue careers, they can pursue education. That's breaking the gender role, because it's giving the role of a man to a woman. Once you open that door and say that women should go out and be working and being educated and all of this, that opens the door to mixing, that opens the door to relationships and so forth. So you have to stop the first step. You have to stop the first step before it can proceed to step 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it's not like zina is just happening. So you go from a very traditional conservative Muslim society, and then next day everyone is having a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It doesn't happen like that. It happens step by step. The previous generations, they destroyed or they undermined strict Islamic gender roles. It's the same thing that has happened in every traditional society, except in the West, it happened 200 years ago. And now, unfortunately, some Muslim countries are catching up. They're going through the same steps.
Oh, yes, that is a harsh truth. So, brother, modernity has affected the social atmosphere of Bengal. There are constant attempts to normalize hatred towards masculinity and family values under the guise of feminism and LGBTQ, as you know. So, how can we fight back?
How can we fight back against these forces?
Yes.
Well, you tell me something. How do you see these kinds of forces affecting your family?
Yes, obviously. It is
How?
affecting by media, by TV, or by the internet, and their ideological mindset are getting changed. These are not obviously Islamic, which our book says, Quran says, or Allah wants.
So what is
So
the biggest issue that you see, like, with these issues?
I would want to say that feminism is the biggest threat
yes.
in Bangladesh, particularly.
And people oftenly believes that women and men are same. Still, our boomer generation believes this, and they think that if you are a woman, you have to complete your graduation, and this is mandatory. Before marriage, you have to complete your graduation, even if you're a woman. And the parents of ours who are five waqt namazi, they go to the prayer every time in the first row, but they think that their daughter should be graduated. How irony. Yeah, so this is the almost every family situation in Bangladesh, and this is happening, unfortunately. So yes,
Where are these ideas coming from?
These ideas are
feminism.
coming from medias, uh,
Yes,
YouTube, and now YouTube is very everyone have YouTube, and these mainly dramas, Indian and Pakistani dramas are pushing these things that women should be educated, women should not get married early. I genuinely think feminism destroyed Bangladesh's family sphere. It is the main reason destroying. I would love to ask you a question. That how do you think feminism destroyed? You were one of the first to call out feminism that it leads to kufr. This is not a normal statement. How do you think it elevates from being a political ideology or a family-based ideology to direct kufr?
It's the mentality of feminism is just a source of way to define injustice. So the feminist identifies injustice as there being inequality. If there is any kind of inequality, then that means there is injustice, and then that injustice has to be destroyed. So how do you destroy injustice? You have to create equality. So the approach of the feminists is to create equality, but in Islam, you have a very basic inequality between men and women. It's men and women are not the same, and men have been given authority over women, as mentioned in the Quran, and for example, Surah An-Nisa. الرجال قوامون على النساء. Men are authorities over women. So this is a hierarchy that is established in Islam, in the Quran. And that means inequality. You have men who have a status above women. Now, that doesn't mean spiritually men and women are unequal. Spiritually, we know in Islam, that whoever does good, Allah, whether it's male or female, Allah is not going to waste the good deeds or is going to overlook the good deeds of anyone just because they're a specific gender or they're a specific race, for example. We know that there is a spiritual equality. If you fast Ramadan and your sister fasts Ramadan, all else being equal, Allah will reward you equally. And if you sin, Allah will punish you equally, regardless of gender. So that's a spiritual equality. But when it comes to the family, when it comes to society, when it comes to government, men have authority positions. Men have a role that Islam has given them that women have not been given. So this is a very fundamental, basic inequality at the core of Islam. And if you adopt feminism, you will always see that as injustice. You will always see that as a crime against women, and then you will try to attack that. You will try to fix that inequality, which means that you'll have to attack Islam. And if you attack Islam, you have to attack the Quran. You have to attack the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You have to attack the scholars of Islam. So that is going to lead to kufr. That's going to very directly lead to kufr. And that's why we see the very obvious pattern with feminists. At first, they are Muslim feminists, but then they become more and more extreme. And then they start attacking Islam, and many of them leave Islam.
That's a dangerous reality to deal with. Rather, we Bangladeshis are hopeful about our future. We admire both your academic and religious background. Many people, many youngsters of Bangladesh really admires you, want to be like you. What would you advise to them?
My number one advice is just make sure to study Islam at a deeper level. And if you want to do da'wah and call people to Islam, then make sure that you have a good traditional teacher, a good traditional scholar that you study with, and that who advises you, and who understands like your mission and what you're trying to do in da'wah. If you're just by yourself, then it's very easy to fall into bad ideologies or adopt bad ideas that will misguide you. So may Allah protect us from that. You have to take the appropriate measures to prevent that kind of misguidance. And the best solution is to have a teacher, an advisor, again, someone who is traditional, someone who is, not a Wahhabi, so to speak, someone who is going to be good to keep you in check.
Okay, but you also have a good academic background. Like I know you have talked about your religious background, but you are also very good at academic. You are a Harvard graduate, right?
Yeah.
So what would Bengali youngsters do to be good at that level? Like people in Bangladesh wants to crack Harvard. How should they crack it? This is a very silly Bengali question.
And another question I'd like to add, that is academically being good is important to every one of us. Like it's like the stereotype we say that you have to be a good student, you have to crack a good university, you have to get a good CGPA, and you have to get a good job. As a Muslim, what do you say?
It's good, yeah, to succeed and to pursue good academic credentials so that you can support your family, you can do well in your career. That is important. That shouldn't be de-emphasized, because as Muslim men, we have a responsibility to Allah, and we have a responsibility to our family, and we have a responsibility to society. So we shouldn't downplay the importance of doing well in your job, in your career, whatever that may be. So if you specifically want to go into the kind of da'wah that I do and debate, and then you don't really need to go to a university. That's not a requirement. And most of the things that I learned that was relevant for debate didn't come from the university classroom, actually. It mainly came from other people, teachers, or it came from books, reading books, and that's really what you need. So if you're wanting to go and debate liberalism or feminism, then you can read those books. You can read the relevant literature and develop arguments, and that will help you in that kind of career or in that kind of doing dawah. And I provide resources as well, on Muslim Skeptic. Make sure that you read Muslim Skeptic. Make sure you follow and watch the debates, and that's where you'll learn much more than you'll learn from like a university.
So let's get back to the feminism topic again. So as I said, that there are fathers in Bangladesh who think that their daughters must graduate from the university, from any university, and then they should get married, and then they could get married. So for this reason, in the previous question, I have said that the zina is getting more normalized. And for this reason, obviously, universities' premixing cultures are getting more popularized, and boys and girls are mixing as they want, and their parents are not seeing them. Also, for the results of the feminism, there are girls who are not eligible for any job. They are getting job, and the boys who needs the job more than the girls, because the responsibility of a boy is obviously far higher than a girl. So they are not getting the job, and the economical crisis is having more intense. Can you elaborate something on female education on university? Is it very important to pursue university education for a female? And if someone doesn't, then what could be her problem? And the final question is, why? How can we overcome this problem in our families?
Yeah, women should not pursue education. Women should not go to university. This is a disaster. It's going to really it's causing many, many problems within Muslim societies. And it is associated with the increase in marriage age, the decrease in family size, because women who are educated, they have fewer children. They end up getting married much later. They have fewer children, and a much higher rate of divorce as well associated with college education. And most of the divorce is initiated by women. 70% or 75% of divorce is initiated by women. Women want to get divorced from their husbands. And then if she's college educated, that number goes to 90%. 90% initiated by women. So this is a disaster when we see many of these Muslim countries, like in the Gulf, like countries like Saudi, Kuwait, UAE, they have these aggressive women's education initiatives where they're pushing women to go get college degrees and then go into the workforce. The divorce rate starts spiking. The divorce rate is now getting close to 50% in some of these Muslim countries, something never heard of before. So this is a huge disaster. This is such a disaster for people on an individual level, on a societal level. So I'm completely opposed to education for women. And the other thing that people will argue is that, well, women are going to be happier when they get educated. This is false. Women have never been more educated at any point in history than today. Women have the most degrees than they have ever had in history. They have the highest positions than they ever had in history. But also the depression rates and the suicide rates are the highest that they've ever been as well. So this is the paradox of women, that when they are given more power, they're given more education, more responsibility, it actually creates more depression, more suffering for them. So from every single angle that you look at it, women's education is a disaster. And how can you change that in your families? Well, you can just educate your family. Educate your what is the value of this? What is this going to bring to your family? If your daughter becomes educated and then she is going to be dissatisfied because she has to get married later, she'll have fewer children, a high likelihood of divorce. Like, this is going to potentially ruin her life. Look at the statistics. Look at what is really happening in Muslim countries. Don't just have this anecdotal reasoning. Oh, I know someone who went and got a degree and now she's happily married and she has kids. Don't look at that one example in your family maybe or your community and think that that's the norm. That's the exception. The vast majority are not like that. So educate your family on this, and if parents care about their daughters, then they should not allow them to fall into this trap.
Oh,
That's hard. Actually, we are going to get so many hate for this podcast. I'm pretty
we're
sure of
getting
that.
controversies for sure.
Well, you're asking the question, so. Well, what do you think is the best way that we can stop women from getting educated?
I would love to get them educated, but in Islamic way. Like, maybe she will go to Islamic institutes, get good knowledge of family, fiqh, theology.
Why?
These things, I think these things will help family as the female Sahabas did. Maybe I might be wrong, but that's what I think.
Yeah, I think there's a basic education is good, so that you know how to read the Quran, and like, these are things that the children learn. But beyond that, beyond what's individually obligatory, fard ain, why does she need to go and learn anything else? That's even the men, they're not required to go and learn theology and go learn fiqh. And if she goes, like, if the daughters are being pushed to pursue this kind of advanced Islamic education, then they're going to come to their husbands and look at their husbands as ignoramuses. Like, you're an ignoramus, and they're going to look down on their husbands. That's what causes the divorce.
Oh, okay, Brother Daniel. When people or conservative Islamic people talks about that, there are some arguments from the female sides who are feminists. I'm going to give you these arguments. I'm not the one to give to have these kind of questions in my mind, but they give this kind of arguments. So I'm going to read those to you. I want your commentaries on this. Like, if a woman is getting educated and she is managing a business, she is contributing to the economy and society. This is one of the arguments they give. And second one is, if she is educated and she is able to earn, if something bad happens, like her husband died, or maybe she got divorced because the husband is bad, in this case not the wife, or maybe she's not the bad one, the bad apple is the husband, then her degree or her ability to earn will help her to earn a livelihood for the rest of her life. What would you say on these arguments?
Brother, this is the argument women always try to say whenever someone says that studying in higher education is not Islamic for you. So they say this, they push this argument.
Yeah, these are very bad arguments. If the way that women contribute to the economy is by having many children and raising good children, that's the way that you are going to improve the economy, improve society. If women are taking their energy and their intellectual energy, their emotional energy, their spiritual energy, and they're spending it, wasting it on a job, instead of their own children, instead of their own families, then the family is going to suffer. The children are going to suffer. And that's not fair. That's not just for those children. And it's not just for the future of the Ummah or the future of Bangladesh. The future is going to suffer because the women, instead of pursuing what Allah has told them, they're pursuing the dunya. They're pursuing dunya for what? Just for their own wealth. Because that's another thing. Women, when they go and work, usually, not all of them, but usually they keep the money for themselves. They don't spend it on their family. They expect that the husband, the father, is going to spend his money on the family, and anything that she earns is for her own pocket. So this is this idea that who benefits from women working, it's no one is benefiting. Everyone is being harmed by that. And then they give a kind of scary story that, oh, you don't get educated and then your husband dies, and then, or your husband mistreats you, and then life is over. Always they think about these bad scenarios when it comes to the Islamic solution or the Islamic way of life. Oh, everything that could go wrong. They never think about all the things that could go wrong when women go and get educated. When women go to the university, many bad things can happen. Many bad things can happen in the university that you can just imagine when women go to that environment. Then they go into a job, and then maybe they won't be able to find a husband. Maybe there won't be any husband who wants to marry a career woman. What about that? Then she'll be all alone, and she will go from her 20s to her 30s and then to her 40s. And there's no solution for that. She's not going to be ever get married or ever have children. What about that terrible scenario? That's not ever in the equation from these feminists.
Oh, okay, brother, let's get to family values. Like, what are the family's values that you would suggest for the upcoming generation? Our parents' generation is gone from the scene. Now we are the ones to take over the future. What family values should we adopt to have a good family?
Adopt the family values of your grandparents and great grandparents. Adopt those values. Those are the source of Islamic values. They were everything that they were practicing that's Islamic. Continue to practice that. That's the solution. You want a real model. You don't get the real model from the book. You get the real model from your previous generation. So if that generation, if your parents' generation has lost it, okay, no problem. You still have your grandparents. Look to them for a model of how to live in the family context. And don't say something like, oh, they didn't know, or oh, they were backwards. They didn't have the right ideas. No, they did have the right ideas. If they made any mistake, okay, correct the mistake, but the overall picture is correct. The overall picture is good. That's what it means that Islam has been preserved, because Muslims pride themselves that unlike other religions, we don't change. We preserve Islam and the practice of Islam. Well, what does the preservation of Islam mean? It means that the preserving through generational practice. The practice of great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, and then us, and then our children. That's how you preserve the practice of Islam, the family values, marriage values, how to raise children. The mindset that, no, we have to be modern, and we have to change, and we have to update. This is a disease that's coming from the West.
I remember a sentence which Brother Muhammad Hijab said, quoting maybe another scientist, that West is technological giants and moral midgets.
Yeah, that could be said, yeah.
Okay, let's get to another topic which I have wrote that wanted to ask you. Can there be any synthesis between Islamic ethics and modern social movements, or are they inherently at odds? If so, how might this synthesis look in practice?
What kind of movement do you have in mind?
The modern movement, like industrial revolution, technological revolution, and basically modernity, I would say.
Yeah, it's very clearly contradictory. Modernism and traditionalism. Islam is traditional, so there's going to be conflict. What modernism means is that we have to continuously update, we have to continuously change, we have to continuously revise our laws so that we progress. That's what modernism tells us to do. Islam says the opposite. Islam says that the best generation are the previous generations. The best people are the Sahaba at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the generation of the Salaf, and then after, those are the best. So if we want to change that, then it's going to be something worse. It's going to be something regressive, degenerate. So this is a very fundamental contradiction between Islam as a traditional religion and modernism and any modern movement.
Well, let's get into some maslaki questions. As you know, Deobandis are more of a traditional practitioners than Salafis, and often there are seen clashes between Deobandis and Salafis. That Salafis claim that these were the things which were done by the Sahabas and their descendants and Salafs and the Khalafs, and you guys are making new bidah, new rules, new systematic changes in the Islam. So, in our traditional values, the Deobandi madrasas give us one specific kind of values, and Salafi madrasas give another specific kind of values, another specific kind of mindsets, ideologies, theologies. What do you say as a general background student, as a researcher, as an academician, which would be more safe for us to educate, to pursue, and for our future generation as well? We should be more safe.
I think what is more safe, just because of the geopolitics, is Deobandi. My Deobandi is more safe, it's more traditional, and it's mainly because Deobandi madrasas are decentralized, so they're more difficult to control. Deobandi madaris are based on a curriculum that, if you have the curriculum, then you can teach it and you can learn it, and therefore it's decentralized. Whereas, unfortunately, when it comes to Salafism, if you take that big concept, they don't have an established curriculum per se, unless they go to the teachings of Ibn Abdul Wahhab and they are teaching specific books of Ibn Abdul Wahhab. And these are dangerous books. They are dangerous because they teach for sectarianism, they teach hatred towards other Muslims, they teach mass takfir of other Muslims. And this is the ideology of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who was an 18th century revivalist, you could call him. But what he ended up doing is he ended up mass takfiring the Muslims of the Ummah, because he said they have violated Tawheed. He says that only I understand Tawheed, and even my teachers in Mecca and Medina, they don't understand Tawheed. And if you don't adopt my Tawheed, that means you're a mushrik, and you're even worse than the mushriks of the Quraysh in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we have to fight you and do jihad against you. This is the ideology of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, and not all Salafis accept this. Not all Salafis accept this, but unfortunately, many of them do. And it causes sectarianism, it causes constant civil war between Muslims. So this is a dangerous thing. This is a bad thing because it divides the Muslims and it causes conflicts that shouldn't exist. So this is why I advise against that strand. So it's safer, and also this is very political, because you have Gulf countries who are very committed to making sure that Muslims adopt this kind of Wahhabism. Why? Because Wahhabism also teaches a loyalty and allegiance to the Saudi state, to Saudi Arabia. And this is bad. This is very bad because unfortunately Saudi Arabia has proven itself to be liberalizing, has proven itself to want to get close to Israel and to even maybe adopt a kind of diplomatic connection to Israel, normalization with Israel. So if that happens, they will distribute this pro-Zionist Islam throughout the Muslim world. And who are they going to channel that through? Through these Salafi networks, these Wahhabi Salafi networks that exist in a country like Bangladesh, that exist in Pakistan, that exist in Malaysia, that exist in Turkey or wherever. This is how their network works. Now with Deobandis, that's just one example, but they are not centralized. They are decentralized. So there isn't one. If one branch gets corrupted, that's the other branches aren't going to immediately get corrupted at the same time. The madrasas aren't all going to get corrupted at the same time because they're decentralized. That's a protection in place that the Deobandis have that others don't necessarily have.
Brother, you mentioned about the decentralization, but Deobandi madrasa, particularly the Darul Uloom Deoband, other madrasas follows their fatwa. So how it is decentralized?
There's no obligation to follow their fatwa. There's no obligation to follow Darul Uloom Deoband. In fact, there are more authoritative. There can be more authoritative madaris in different parts of the world. So they have a diversity actually when it comes to fatwa. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap, but there's not a requirement.
Okay, brother. If I ask you, there are Salafis who doesn't follow Abdul Wahhab. So, do you think this ideology without the Abdul Wahhab is good?
As long as it's committed to traditional Islam, as long as it's committed to the schools of thought, the madhahib, then it can be good. Yeah, no problem. But if it's going to take a posture that no, we throw out the Islamic tradition and we go back to the Salaf and we ignore everything in between us and the Salaf, then this is dangerous. This is what creates modernism, and it should be rejected.
Oh, why it is dangerous? Like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to us to follow the 3 generations. So why
Another thing, why it creates modernism? I didn't understand the thing. Why
Yeah, this is
modernism?
related. Good questions. So the Prophet ﷺ is telling us these are the best 3 generations, so we should follow them. How can we follow the first 3 generations? Do you have like some, videos of them? Do you have some, some flash drives that have their statements recorded? Do you have like how do we know what the Salaf believed and what they did?
there are text of them. There are books that other people after them recorded through this text, which
Okay, so you're following texts compiled by people who came after. So
Yeah.
you're following the people who came after them. You're not following them. You're following the people that came after them.
Yeah.
that's a valid argument. Okay, it's a valid
Yeah,
argument.
this is the claim. This is just a slogan that is being used, that we follow the Salaf. You don't follow other, the Deobandis or whoever, the Ash'aris, the Maturidis, the Deobandis, the whatever. They don't follow the Salaf. We follow the Salaf. Okay, how are you following the Salaf? No, you're following people who came later. You're following people who came later, who wrote books later. That's who you're following. And that's exactly what everyone else does. That everyone wants to follow the Salaf. Everyone wants to follow the Salaf. And how do you get to the Salaf? You have to go through a tradition. You have to go through other scholars. You have to go through other books in a chain. That's what the whole concept of an isnad, a sanad, like a chain that goes back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and goes back to the Salaf, but you can't access it directly. You can't access it directly because you don't have a time machine. You don't have a time machine. You don't have like specially recorded videos or audio that has been preserved in a time capsule that you can open and you can say, oh, this is what the Salaf said. You always have to go through the medium or the channel of a tradition. Everyone does that. No one can bypass that. The only way you could bypass that is if you have a time machine. So this is why that's why it becomes dangerous. That's why it leads to modernism. Because if you start saying things like, no, we reject all of the great ulama of the tradition, we reject the schools of fiqh, we reject the madhahib, we reject all this, we go directly to the source, then you're judging and you're interpreting Quran and Sunnah and the statements of the Salaf on the basis of your own understanding. And if you do that, you're going to be much more likely to make mistakes. You're going to be much more likely to choose things that are according to a modern logic or modern morality. You know, the morality of a midget, as you were saying, from Muhammad Hijab. That's the kind of interpretation that you will have of the Quran and Sunnah. But if you say, no, I'm going to follow the giants that came before me, I'm going to follow the giant of Imam Abu Hanifa, for example, then and the other ulama, the scholars of the Hanafi school, that is going to keep you more safe from modernism, because when they were interpreting and understanding and conveying the Quran and Sunnah, they were not influenced by modernism. They weren't influenced by modern morality and feminism and liberalism and secularism. Therefore, their interpretation is going to be more correct. It's going to be more authentic and close to the truth, as opposed to if we try to interpret it based on our reason and our morality that is highly affected by the modern world.
Brother Daniel, which madhab do you follow? By?
Mainly Hanbali school. Some Hanafi school as well.
Okay. The Salafis has the most problem with the Hanafi schools. Yeah, but from my personal point of view, I try to make unity with everyone. Like I do think Salafis are good. Maybe there are some takfiris. Those are bad apples, but I think not all of them are bad. Okay, so if I want to have unity between Hanafis and Salafis, what should I do?
Should emphasize that this is what Allah wants. Allah wants us to all come together, all believers, all Muslims to come together for His sake. Allah does not want us to divide. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. This is what Allah says in the Quran. All of you come together and hold fast to the rope of Allah and don't differ, don't divide and split up into groups. So this is something that we should emphasize to all Muslims. If we don't work together, if we don't cooperate, then we're just going to be involved in civil war that is going to fracture the ummah and make us vulnerable to the attacks of our enemies. And so in Bangladesh, you have big enemies. You have big enemies that want to destroy the country. You don't have the luxury of fighting each other. You don't have the luxury to fight each other.
Okay, brother, you are someone who actively fight back the Hindutva narrative. You have seen that Hindutva attacks two nations the most. One is Bangladesh and another is Pakistan, right? So what Bengali Muslims should do to fight back Hindutva?
Well, I don't want to advise you on what you know best yourself. So I'm not in their country. I don't know the kinds of plots that the Hindutva have. They clearly want to.
I'm not talking about the Hindu religion. I'm talking about the Hindu supremacy ideology. Okay. So how should we take care of them academically? Maybe that's an appropriate question for you.
It seems to me that the I heard recently that one of the first shipments or economic shipments of rice is coming to Bangladesh from Pakistan.
Yeah, that's correct.
This was announced.
Yes.
So that's great. You know, that kind of economic ties between Pakistan and Bangladesh and then other Muslim countries. This is really a big win for Bangladesh and for the Ummah if Muslims are going to help each other and form tighter connections, tighter economic ties. That's going to be the biggest nightmare for India and for Hindutva. They want to see Muslims isolated and weak. They want to see Muslims constantly fighting each other and being at war with each other. So that's more of that economic ties, diplomatic ties, brotherhood between Bangladeshi and Pakistani Muslims. That's the solution. And academically, they're not a threat. Hindutva is a very broken ideology. They define themselves as the opposite of Muslim. So whenever Muslims define themselves as, they define themselves as the opposite. So it's a very weak ideology. It has no strong academic basis. And I challenge a lot of Hindutvadis to debate, and they run away. They can't debate. They can't argue. So it's like a waste of time trying to intellectually deconstruct them.
Okay.
They're more of the aggressive ones, and they have so much low IQ. They drink cow urine. They smell like cow, Anyway,
Dung,
yeah.
Like
So
it's like you're asking me, give me an intellectual argument against drinking cow urine or eating cow dung. Like, so it's a waste of time.
yeah, really.
Okay, let's get to the worldly ideological things. In the era of secularism, the secularism are on the rise. What Bengali youngster Muslims, as the previous generation is gone from the scene now, what Bengali youngster Muslims should do to be valuable in the society as well as contribute to the religiosity.
Just build strong families, maintain strong family, concentrate on the family, don't allow families to break up. That's the number one thing that you can do to contribute to society and Islam, both. There's nothing better in terms of good deeds than maintaining the ties of kinship with your family. When you see the family unit break down, that's when the Islamic character of a nation breaks down as well. So that's what number one recommendation for both the society, the nation, and for Islam.
Okay, how can the youths balance personal success and religious observability, maintaining both things together? As you are one of the example who did good in both fields, how would any Bengali Muslim can do it?
Maintain what fields?
Personal success, like academic. We're not talking about women. Let's talk in general. How can a man do good in his own personal life and as well as religious life, like contribute to the society?
Careeristic life and religious life, Deen and Dunya.
Yeah, that's what I asked. Imran simplified it.
Yeah, so Islam needs to be your focus and your priority for your personal practice. So you have to learn the fundamentals of Islam and the things that are fard ayn, they're individual obligations that Allah will ask you on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Do you have the right beliefs in terms of the 6 pillars of Iman? Have you done your 5 pillars of Islam? So are you familiar with the hadith of Jibril? Do you know this hadith? Where Jibril, the angel, came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked, what is Islam? What is Iman? What is Ihsan? Yeah, so the angel Jibril came and asked him what is Iman, and the Prophet ﷺ gave the 6 pillars of Iman. Belief in Allah, the angels, the books, the messengers, the qadar of Allah, or the last day, Yawm al-Akhir, and the qadar of Allah, the preordainment of Allah. Those are the 6 pillars. And then what is, Jibril asked, what is Islam? And the Prophet ﷺ gave the 5 pillars of Islam. And then what is ihsan? What is ihsan? And it means to worship Allah as if you see him, and if given that you cannot see him, know that he sees you. So this is a spiritual excellence. So every Muslim needs to understand this hadith and learn all about how to practice Islam and have the correct beliefs. That's for personal. Then also you have responsibility towards working, towards making a living, and establishing yourself economically. So focus on that second. Then when you have done that and you have established yourself economically, so that you can stand on your 2 feet, you don't depend on anyone else to support you, then you can think about da'wah, then you can think about spreading Islam after you can stand on your 2 feet. That's the order of priority. If you do that with the right priority, then inshallah you'll have tawfiq, you'll have success.
That's okay. Imagine the scenario. Let's say I am someone who is from university background. I never been introduced to the Islam. Right? I am someone who maintains Islam, like I pray 5 times a day, or maybe make dua, and these general things. Who is not very knowledgeable to Islam. Now I got introduced to Islam. What should I learn first? How should the hierarchy goes on? How it should go?
Study the pillars of Iman. What does it mean to believe in Allah? Who is Allah? What is required to believe of Allah? Then what are the angels? What is required to believe of the angels? And then the books, then the messengers, then the last day, then the qadar of Allah. You have to study that. You have to know and understand that. That's the priority. Then the 5 pillars. How do you pray? Do you know the requirements for prayer? Do you know the requirements for tahara? Do you know the requirements for if you make a mistake in prayer or you forget something? Do you know what are the essential components of prayer? What are not essential components of prayer? These are the things that you study. Don't just assume that you know them. And then when you have, it's not something that takes a lifetime to study. It's something that you could study in 1 year. 1 year or maximum 2 years. If you study maybe an hour or 2 hours a week, then you could study that in 2 years.
Okay.
It's very important. It's very important, and people take this knowledge for granted. They think that they know, but their knowledge is very shaky, or it has a lot of gaps, and then they get surprised.
Now let's go to another section on the questions, which is international. What do you think about the Syrian revolution that just now took place under the leadership of Ahmed al-Shara?
I think that it's good that the previous dictator was deposed, Bashar al-Assad. I think that's great that he was taken out because he committed many atrocities.
I once saw that a guy asked you, is he a Muslim? And you said he is not, because he is a Nusairi. I remember you.
Yeah.
Ooh, but just 2 days ago, a brother said that you said he took like 80% of Sunnis in his own government. The Mufti of his government was Sunni. Is that right?
Yeah, the majority of his government was Sunni, but the authorities or the leaders of his government were also Alawi, Nusayri.
Do you think so? Do you mean that there were Sunnis, but the leaders were only Alawites?
Right.
Okay. So now, as they were like out of the fault of the Islam, you as Muslim and we as Muslim must be happy. But what do you think about the revolution?
Well, there's just a lot of questions about this revolution, who's really behind it, and what is going to end up happening because of it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad signs that this is a revolution that has been mediated and controlled by the US. And it's something that is going to ultimately serve the interests of Israel. So that's the main concern. It's too early to judge, but there's just a lot of bad signs. And the biggest bad sign is that Israel is occupying pretty much a big chunk of southern Syria. And I think the defense minister of Israel just recently said that they will not tolerate any Syrian forces below Damascus, below southern Damascus. So the situation now is pretty much that Israel is occupying southern Syria, and they have a direct line to control Damascus whenever they want. And one of the big problems that came out of the revolution is that Israel immediately destroyed many of the air defense capabilities of the country. So the air defense systems would have provided a deterrent against Israel, pushing forward towards Damascus and taking over more and more of Syria. Now, without air defenses, there's nothing stopping Israel from pushing up and taking as much as it wants, occupying as much as it wants. So this is a disaster.
We are publicly saying that the revolution was backed by Turkey. I don't know about the US. I have seen the conversation. But if it is backed by Turkey, which Turkey also claims, maybe they do not claim directly, but indirectly they claims, right? Even Ahmad al-Shara also affirms this by his actions. He also never said that he was backed by Turkey, but they said that Turkey was the only country to support the Syrian people, which also means what I am saying. So, do you believe in Turkish leadership? Like there is a thing that people believes in Bangladesh, and I have also seen this in global stage. I also think that Erdogan will be the leader of Islamic revivalism in the world.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on that?
Brother, don't you think Turkey is playing a great political game there in Syria? Maybe they're trying to overthrow Israel by maybe proxy or any kind of other sources. But Erdogan is trying, right?
I think that it'd be great if Turkey can become a bigger force in the Middle East, and they can exert more pressure on every country in the Middle East for the purpose of advancing Islam. That'd be great. Some of Erdogan's actions, I think, should be supported, but it's yet to be seen, because there's a big question about Erdogan's commitment to opposing Israel and economically isolating Israel. It doesn't seem like Turkey has done enough, or has really done as much as it can to isolate Israel, especially as Israel commits a genocide against Palestinians. So these are question marks, but personally, I would love it if Erdogan and Turkey take a more aggressive posture and try to pressure, especially Israel, but even other countries, towards advancing Islamic interests and Muslim interests. That'd be great.
The Turkey is also setting up a military production factory in Bangladesh. This is also a great news. We need greater Islamic powers in Bangladesh. India is gone now. India's puppet Hasina is also gone. We need some players. From my personal point of view, I might be wrong, that I genuinely believe that Turkey and Qatar has the potentiality to lead the Islamic revivalism in the world. I hope I won't be wrong, but we can just pray and hope for the future. Is this something that we share in between?
Yeah, I have hope too that Turkey is going to lead. Qatar, let's see. These countries, if they can lead, that'd be great. But weapons production, that's wonderful. That's how Muslim countries can gain sovereignty and stop being bullied and pushed around and controlled by the United States, especially, but even India or even China, Russia. We have to have our own weapons capabilities and being able to produce especially long-range missiles, drones. This is important, I think.
Yeah, brother, we have come to the end of the podcast. Is there any advice you would give to our audiences?
Well, I'm just very proud of the people of Bangladesh. Mashallah, it's an inspiration what they were able to do to change the regime that was, controlled by India and Hindutva. So it's very inspiring to the whole ummah what Bangladesh has done. So I love all of my Bangladeshi brothers. And may Allah bless you and protect you and continue to bring more and more success for that beautiful country, mashallah.
Is there any advice that you would want to say? That's a statement, but I want an advice for the Bangladeshi youngsters. Bangladeshi youngsters love you, to be very honest. They are searching for intellectual people, and two of the duat, I would say, the tops in the list is one Muhammad Hijab and second is you. So
well, the advice I'll give you is don't educate your daughters. That's the advice.
We'll get cancer.
Okay. So that's the end of the podcast. We got too many controversies, and I don't know what people is going to react. That's all for today. We will meet you in the next podcast. Inshallah, you can find all the episode, including this episode, on all the audio platforms and in Facebook and YouTube as well. Do follow there and subscribe on YouTube. May Allah reward you all. We will see you in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.